Well, hello everyone. Welcome back. Welcome to a Wine Affair podcast. I'm super excited about our guest tonight. His name is Jeremy Jones, and he has a wonderful site on Instagram called the Grape Pursuit. And we'll tell you the story about how I found him in a minute. But Jeremy, I want to welcome you in. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Favorite part.
Before we dive into a lot of the stuff we want to talk to you about, we always start our podcast with what's in your glass. So, being that you are the guest, you can go first. And
Perfect.
you just tell a little bit about what we have in our glass and just a little bit about what we like about it and what are the notes on it so our listeners can find these wines.
Cool. Well, the website I run is all about finding kind of obscure and lesser cultivated grapes. So I thought I'd open up a Saporave from Standing Stone. Saporave is actually a Georgian grape. Put the bottle down real fast. It's one of the most cultivated grapes in Georgia, but it is interesting because it's growing more in the United States now. It's a grape that's tolerable of cool climates, but it produces big bold reds, and it's actually really well suited for the Finger Lakes. So Standing Stone, they're within the Herman J. Weimer brand on Seneca Lake. I think they claim to have the largest holding of Saporave in North America or in the United States, like outside of Georgia. And if you've had a lot of Finger Lakes wine, the reds, they can get there, but big bold red is not really something that the Finger Lakes is known for compared to say like a Riesling. But this wine is a big bold red, and one of the reasons I love it is it's a Teinturier kind of grape where the juice is actually pigmented, so it can make really deeply colored reds. The rosés are just lovely and beautiful. This one's a 2020 vintage, which was a warmer year, so it's got a lot of dark fruit notes onto it, blackberry, starting to get into like the leather tobacco area, but it's got really strong tannins and really can hold up to like a good barbecue or just smoked meat or something, and it's ageable. So this is the first one I've opened from 2020, and the rest are kind of sleeping in my cellar for a decade from now because they're intense wines.
Nice.
Oh man, that's beautiful. So good.
I'm getting jealous.
Andy, what's in your glass?
I also chose a big bold red that they say should cellar. Mine's also a 2020, so I'm curious if I do go back and buy another one and age it for a little while, we can see how it comes out in a few more years. But I chose the grape that stumped me on my recent WSET test. And it's one that sounds like two other white grapes, and I just froze. And it's Aglianico. This is the Aglianico del Vittore. So it is an southern Italian grape. It is a native grape to Italy. One that when you talk to people, they say it's one of Italy's three big grapes, but especially here in the US, like we don't see it very often, or I wasn't as familiar to it because I just go central and north or Sicily. So I had to try it. I had to find it. And so I did. Also because Del Vittore, there is an Amazon movie called On the Vine or From the Vine, and they talk all about it. And I felt even more stumped that I'd missed it if it's in Hollywood movies, and I should have known what this grape was. So I know Jeremy and I were chatting about it a little bit because you've tried the Taurasi from the other side of it, or just its left neighbor, western neighbor.
Yeah, I love Aglianico. It's one of those grapes too. It's just like almost probably even more intense than Saporave. It's just like when it's aged and it's meaty and smoky. It's just like everything I said about going to barbecue, just up that with game. It's like it's a beautiful wine, but it's one of those, like, if we're talking about like obscure grapes, like all the stores carry it, but you might not know it's Aglianico because like Taurasi will just have Taurasi on the label. So it's like one of those things where if you don't know that those locations are that great, you might just overlook it and never touch it, which is kind of an unfortunate byproduct of how naming and wines are. So,
yeah.
How's
And that's the thing. I knew Taurasi, but I just had skimmed over it because I didn't know it.
How's the one you're drinking now?
So this one, like I said, a few more years, being only 4 years old, would help probably soften it a little bit, but I love big tannins. So it is just kind of gripping right now, but then there's also still a bit of a high acidity. So you know it's going to be a good balance. And the thing I'm really picking up on at first, though, is the oak aging. So there's definitely a spice to it,
Hmm.
which I also love. And it's more of the darker, jammier fruits. So not as fresh and bright, but definitely still something yummy that I'm really enjoying. And like you said, perfect with the barbecues or a stew. Like it being summertime, I just want to go throw some meat on a grill right now and then just like pick at it while drinking this. So I'm very excited. We had this call today, so I had to go out and buy it.
Nice. Any excuse to enjoy one of those, I wouldn't be upset about.
Exactly. So yes, cheers. Cindy, how about you? You also picked a red too, didn't you?
I did pick a red, also a 2020, so we're 2020, all three of us.
Perfect.
I went with a Bonarda from Mendoza, Argentina. I've had this before. I love Bonarda. It's also known as La Douce Noir or Charbonneau, also. And it is a hugely grown grape in Argentina. What I love about this, and it's a beautiful color, um, very violet, but it does have that sort of clear rim around the edge of it because it's got a little tiny bit of age. You can like there's a little variance of color on the outside. But what I love about this is it's such a good wine with most things. It's got that perfect body. It's not too full. It's not too tannic. It's very smooth. It's very easy drinking. And I have had people that swear they don't like red wine and they taste this and they're like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. Because it's not that tannic, super dry red that's just unapproachable for some people until you're there. This is just beautiful. And I mean, on the nose, I definitely get that blueberry, blackberry, lots of dark fruit, black plum, um, a hint of violet. Very nice. Just, I
I,
mean,
li-
such a pretty. Yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was gonna say I just like that grape too because it's kind of like the Saporave I have. Like that's a French grape that actually just found good holdings in Argentina, and now it's I think
Hmm.
grown more there than it is back in France. Like kind of fell out of favor in
Yeah.
France.
Yeah, I think it's still pretty undiscovered. And oh, yeah, I mean, it's just so really nice finish. It's got a lasting finish to it. And I do get that fruit stays, that blackberry, blueberry,
Hmm.
the plum, but I'm not getting the tannic sides of your mouth thing. It's got enough dryness and acidity, but it's just perfect. It's so smooth. Little licorice note on there too. And I mean, this is just endless pairing opportunities. You could pair this with most things because again, it's not so big. But I love this, and I'm glad you've had it too, Jeremy, because this is one of the ones on your list, which I was happy about. So that was great.
Yeah, I had it once when I was studying, I think for WSET diploma, and maybe once at a wine bar. So I've never actually like written down my tasting notes of it to put on the website, but I know I've had it a few times. Yeah, I think you nailed it with the kind of crowd pleaser comment. Like it's one of those bottles that you could just open up and
Yeah.
everyone will enjoy it because it's just drinkable and lovely, you know.
Yeah. No, we love it. It's a go-to at my household. Like it's one of those like especially during the week when you like want a good glass of wine and you're just looking for something and I love like you just talking about the fresh fruits like takes my memory back to it because in this the Italian like it's dried fruit. Like there is some fruit characters
Yeah.
but it's very dried cherry. There's a little dark plum, but it's definitely just kind of like they're the little bit of opposite ends, and I just think that's so fun because they're both big, bold red grapes.
Hmm. Yeah, I think Andy, you and I have wines that we definitely should be eating some meat with. Or Cindy's rocking to buy the glass that's
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I think I have some grilled pork chops after this, so I'm gonna
Oh,
go
there you
dive
go.
into that.
There you go.
All
I also got a
right.
little cocoa note on the end of that last one too.
Oh, yeah,
Well, that's really
so
nice.
good.
Well, Jeremy, let's talk about your background because I came across your Instagram page and I was telling Andy, one of the things that like stood out for me was this was a guy who wanted to try every varietal ever. And I was like, whoa, very cool. So you inspired me to look at different wines because you know how you get into your little comfort zone of stuff you drink all the time.
Right.
And I want you to know, I've looked at your list and I have bought some things based on things that you've tried and
Yes.
that I haven't had yet. Yeah, right. And I was like, I've never heard of that. And then I'll go and find it and ask about it. And it's given me an opportunity to learn some more varietals that I didn't have before. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started with the Grape Pursuit.
Yeah. So I guess my background is that I'm a travel blogger full time. I have a travel website and a destination site for Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I live. I run those as my business. So I've been doing my travel blog 16 years old, and I've been doing it as my full time job for about 6 years now. So I based on that, you can imagine I've been to a bunch of wine regions just traveling as as a tourist. So I want to say about 2019, I started really getting into wine locally at the wine bars. There's a APP for the WSET school here in Pittsburgh that was doing, some one-off wine classes at to learn more. And I decided to sign up for WSET diploma to start in, or not diploma, sorry, WSET, start over. I decided to sign up for WSET level 2 for a start date of March 2020. So you can imagine what happened there. I didn't get to do that class until September 2020.
Okay.
So it was a weird time during the shutdown where my business was essentially dead because I couldn't travel. I couldn't do anything in the city. Most of us were just sitting home drinking wine. So my wife and I took it as an opportunity to start like a wine blog as a new project, and we wanted to have a theme with it. In travel writing and content writing, everyone has to, like, I think nowadays has to kind of come at things from an angle of how to attack a subject that's kind of been beaten to death. Generally, wine maybe not as bad as travel, but in like the global travel scene, there's tens of thousands of people writing things. So we thought, we like trying grapes that we've never had before. Why don't we go on a quest to try every grape varietal in the world? Did a bunch of research on what grapes are commercially grown, and then kind of put together a list of like what our checklist would be, and then that was kind of our guide with how we go find new grapes, and then it kind of just gave structure for us when we were learning and tasting wine.
How many
Huh.
grapes did you guys come up with?
So that's a good question. So there's kind of like a breakout because there's tens of thousands of grapes out there, but when we're doing research between all these resources, a lot of them are saying that this grape exists or this grape was hybridized by someone 100 years ago, but no one grows them commercially into wine. From what I could tell, and I could be completely wrong here because synonyms are drive me nuts. I have somewhere around 1,500 that I think are commercially produced that I think I would be able to actually find with like a grape name on a label.
Okay.
There probably are 3,000 or more of just like stuff that's grown at a farm that goes into a field blend and no one knows that it exists. But about 1,500 is my guess.
Wow. Quite a feat.
Yeah. So we're at 331 now. And I should say that with an asterisk because I write down if I've had it as a 5% blend where you can't tell, or as a varietally pure bottle. But I write all that down as a guide for me, so that way I know if I see something later, I go back and grab the pure bottle to get better characteristic out of it.
I like that. I'm all about an asterisk system.
Yeah, caveats make the world go round.
Exactly.
So, what constitutes a varietal for you? Is it something that needs to be commercially sold first, or
I mean, if it's available and listed on a label and something I can try, I'll call it a
okay?
grape varietal. When I was looking, there's a lot of grapes in, say, Croatia and Eastern Europe that you read about this grape and it's like the holdings are like 5 hectares, which is probably like one person has a farm of this grape that's a legacy grape from hundreds of years ago, and they might produce it. Whether it actually gets into a bottle that I could buy at a store, I don't know. But like if I was there, I could probably get a taste of it. at a restaurant or
Yeah.
something in that town. Those are on my list, but I don't think I'm ever going to get to try them unless I like really do a deep dive in like say the islands of Croatia. But I mean, I'm willing to go bust my passport out and go travel and drink some good wine.
That's so fun. And so, like, you being a travel blogger and a wine blogger, kind of where have been some of your favorite places to visit where you're really able to expose yourself to like grapes of, not as familiar?
Well, it kind of kills me because I spent 2 or 3 months backpacking around the Balkans before I was really into wine, so I just missed so much. We've been doing a lot of Italy travel lately. Like Piedmont is probably a good example of like, we were there to get all the Barolo that we could possibly enjoy, but then they have Arnies and like all these other beautiful grapes that are very low cultivated. I've seen some of them here before, but I gotta actually try a bunch of producers on a grape that I knew maybe minimally about, which I really like. But yeah, for obscure grapes, I need to get to more Eastern Europe, Georgia, Armenia, kind of get closer back to the birthplace of grapes because that's where like the explosion of varietals really exists. So that's kind of on my radar. We were also supposed to go to Georgia in 2021, and COVID resurgence also canceled that one too. So yeah, we'll get there
Have
one
to
day.
add it back to the list.
Yeah.
So, what advice, because I know a lot of our listeners are trying to expand their palates and try new wines. What advice would you have for somebody that's trying to expand into other varietals? How would you approach that for them?
Yeah, I think there's a few ways that you can kind of look at it because I kind of look at the lesser known varietals as maybe a bit of a tier type system because a lot of, as I think you said, you have a Total Wine near you. A lot of big wine stores will have like other reds or other whites section
Yep.
or, a other international section that doesn't fall under, say, like Italy. I like to just go into those sections and like take a look at bottles and just grab things that I don't know. Um, and then that's one way to do it. Another, I think, for some people, maybe just getting into outside of say the top 10 or 15 grapes. There's some that I really love that are pretty widely available. Like, a lot of people I know have never tried Gruner Veltliner from Austria.
Mhm.
The Aglianico is a great example. Most every wine store will have an Aglianico, whether it's on a label or not. I think you mentioned Sicily earlier. Their Frappatos or Nerello Mascalese from Mount Etna are
Oh, yeah.
beautiful wines that most stores carry bottles of that might be new to people. That would be kind of the easiest ways to dive into it if those are new grapes for you because they're just everywhere. Now, for like really more out there grapes, I'm fortunate in Pittsburgh. We have a wine bar that will always have a couple new grapes every time I go. It's called Allegheny Wine Mixer in Lawrenceville. And if I see a new grape, I just immediately order it. But then a lot of it, like as I was saying, like it's kind of travel related too. Like I had a layover in Istanbul once and their duty free just had all indigenous Turkish grapes. So I kind of had a field day shopping at duty free to bring wine home. So yeah, I think there's some tiers on things that you can do to get down into the rabbit hole. But then like online stores too, like wine.com, they have a lot of cool grapes in the other red or other white section as well. So like get out of the Chardonnay territory.
Yeah.
That's so fun. So, what have been some that have surprised you? I know you've mentioned a couple that you say you keep in your cellar or that you and your wife really enjoy drinking. Like, what are
Mm.
some of your go-tos that maybe we should keep an eye out for next time we go shopping?
Yeah, I mean, I think if like for the grapes that most stores would have that might be new to people, like for light reds, I love a Frappato or a Zweigelt, Sicilian and Austrian respectively. Gruner is great. I think a lot of people maybe haven't gotten into Madeira as much as they should, and those are all indigenous grapes to the island. It's like think of sherry, but if it actually had better acidity. Not
Mhm.
a sherry fan, I'm sorry.
I'm not
um,
either. I'm not either. Yeah.
Sapperave, most places will have Georgian, and you might find the Finger Lakes ones as well. Also, a Georgian white. I'm a writer. I'm not used to saying things out loud. I think it's Ricazzatelli.
Yes.
It's a white grape as well. The interesting thing about Georgian grapes that some people might want to be careful with, that might be worth asking a som or an employee at the store, is that they like to do a lot of natural fermentation in amphora, especially with the whites. It can be skin contact, and it can be funky is a word that's thrown around a lot. So those can be kind of all over the place depending on how the winemaker decided to make the wines. But those are always fun to get in. But if you have apprehensions of like skin contact grape white wines, that could be something to ask a somm. Those are ones that I love that are like pretty approachable and pretty common. Then we could go down the rabbit hole of like really obscure grapes that I got on, say, like wine.com that they might only have one producer on. I found some really fun ones like Kerner. Have you had any of that one?
No, but I'm gonna go to wine.com and look it up.
Yeah, Kerner it was a cross between Riesling and Schiava Grossa, and it was created and crossed in in Germany. And I found a bottle on wine.com from Alto Adige. And it,
Yeah,
like, think of Riesling, but if it had a little bit more florality and a little bit of that like waxy phenolic texture. So like that's a fun one
interesting.
if you like Riesling and want something a little different. Kerner, like I
Yeah,
always have a bottle of that Kerner at home that I think there's only one on wine.com, but it's from an Alto Adige producer. It's yeah, beautiful wine. I am really partial to Okuz Gozu from Turkey. It's a big bold red from Turkey that I've actually seen in a couple stores in the United States, but it's one that I pick up if I'm on a layover and see it. I'm just, yeah, that's coming home with me. So those are
nice.
beautiful wines. There's also just like really fun grapes that you might not know about too much. Like I love Susau from Portugal. It's a grape that they typically put in the fortified port as like only a few producers make a single varietal still wine out of it. Quinta de Vallado is one of them, and they actually import it in the United States. I've seen it in a number of stores lately. It's for big bold red lovers, like go there. Um, and then another grape that I always have a bottle of on hand is a Vesso. It's a Portuguese white grape. It's grown in the Vinho Verde. It's typically thrown in the blends when they make that wine, but there are like 2 or 3 producers in that region that have prized land that grows a Vesso that will do it as a varietally pure bottle. It has a lot of the same characteristics of like a Vinho Verde, but it's just got more intensity and more robustness. It's
Okay,
yeah, they're beautiful. I could keep talking about obscure grapes. I just kind of wanted to rattle off a few that are fun that I know you can find with a little
that's
bit of
great.
effort.
Yeah, no, I love that because it's true. Like down in my rabbit hole and I don't think to look up and try something new. So you just like I really will take your list shopping with me.
Sweet.
Like I
And
have
also if I may say as a tangent too, it doesn't have to necessarily be grapes like how I have organized on the site. Regions also, Turkish wine, Lebanese wine,
love
the Baltic
Lebanese wine.
countries. If you've never had a Sicilian red, like do it. Those are
Yes.
good ways to like try something new, even if you don't know what the grape is. Like one of my favorite producers is Chateau Moussar from Lebanon, and they do Bordeaux blends, but oh my God, it's so
So
good.
good. Yeah, we're fortunate. We have a Persian restaurant across the street, and so they have a decent share of Lebanese wines, but there's a few shops around the town that like we buy whenever we see it. We love Lebanese wines.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So the same logic goes to regions, just like grapes to me.
Nice.
So
Very cool. Another thing I wanted to touch on, Jeremy, because you
yeah,
mentioned you are a travel blogger. Can you speak a little bit about the blogging business and what that's like now, in this particular time period? And if somebody were looking to get into that, is it something that they can make a living off of at this point? What's your view on that?
it's not so good right now. If you had asked that question 3 months ago, I probably would have been like, yeah, blogging's, the last few months have been really weird in blogging because Google's been rolling out the AI overviews where they're essentially just taking our content and publishing it themselves. So it's getting rid of, it's like, reducing traffic sources that way. Social media is getting a bit more competitive as well. And they're also pushing AI content, things like that. Um, in terms of making a living, I do have to say I run 5 websites and I make a living on the collective of the 5. And it took me about a decade to get it to the point where I was able to do it as my full-time job. So it's like there is, you can still earn money creating content online for sure. It's just getting harder and harder. Um, and I think, as I was saying at the beginning, like coming at things from a unique angle where it's not been done by a billion people is also really tricky. But there are, always tons of opportunities for earning money. It's just, what's the new way forward is always even what I'm scrambling to figure out half the time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I don't, unfortunately, probably not the right answer that you were hoping I was saying, but it's,
No,
yeah,
no,
I mean,
no.
Oh, it's good to know.
yeah, it's definitely one of those things too. It takes time. Like most blogs don't even start earning good money for a couple years, even at the start. So it's an investment. I always like to tell people that don't get into blogging unless it's something that you would do even if you weren't making money. So like for me,
Okay.
writing about wine is super easy because I would still be taking my notes for study and I'd still be, you know, drinking the wine. So when you find an overlap like that, it tends to make an easier decision as well.
Yeah.
Agreed, 100%. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, I think,
Yeah.
too, like thinking of your travel blog and also the Grape Pursuit. So, how can people get connected with you? Like, where is the best way to find your site and get your list and kind of follow you on your journey?
Yep. So our website's thegrapepursuit.com. I think all my social media handles are at the Grape Pursuit. On our website, we have a varietal checklist, which is what's been referenced a few times. That's what I found when I did a cross reference of thousands of grapes from dozens of different sources and compiled everything. And this was all done before AI was a thing, and it probably would actually save me a lot of time retrospect. But that that has my checklist of all the grapes that I've had. If it has a link, it'll go to a review of the bottles that we've tried. If
Mhm.
it's just checked and not linked, it means I've not written about it, but I've tried it. And then I also put the percentages of what we've had for like, that's mostly just for me, just for when I check later. And as I was saying, like if it's only had a 5% and I find a varietal bottle, I can go grab it. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting way to go about it. And I pull open my own checklist when I'm in the grocery store when I'm checking wines and oh, I've not had that before, and I grab the bottle.
Well, this
And
is
real
great.
fast, yeah, I'm curious, what's like one to two or your top three that you're looking for right now that you're like
Ooh,
really anxious to try?
that's a good question. I might need a second to think about that because I've
I knew
had,
Aglianico was on my list because it stumped me. So I have
yeah,
a few other ones that like I need to find.
yeah. So I'm just scrolling through my list right now, which this will just take way longer than I would like it to. We've had like 331 of the 1500 plus that I think are commercially produced. I don't know if there's any that are. I gotta think of what's jumping out to me. I mean, I think the easy answer is that I actually get excited when I find a grape that I don't recognize. So it's one of those things where I am like, I want to like actually just see it on a shelf or on a wine menu and just be surprised and be like, I don't know that. Why don't I know that? And then that's what triggers me to go down my rabbit hole. Yeah, if I could just go and say that it might not necessarily be a specific grape, but like a style of wine is like I really want to go down the ice wine rabbit hole. I think that I have had a shockingly low amount of ice wine in my life. That might
And
not be
you're
a
in
new grape, but
Pittsburgh.
it's kind of a different style, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah. You're so
Uh,
close to so many great regions.
I can drive up to Toronto and I just don't do it. And I don't know why.
They're fun. You go with an open mind, and they're a lot of fun.
I went once, I want to say about 15 years ago, but that was like before I really got into wine. And so it was like it kind of lost on me on how good it was.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I worked at a Virginia winery, and we had a Vidal Blanc just
Mm-hmm.
by itself. So it kind of like eased me into liking it as an ice wine. So yeah, it's kind of expanding my expectations and understanding kind of helped me dive into the sweeter stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
I I think there's also some styles of wines that I would really like to try that I've never seen before, even if I've had the grape. One of them is the like the Tokai fortified wines. They have the, 5 Putanos, 6 Putanos. I think it's called is it the Essentia? The one that's like thick like syrup because it's
The
taken
syrupy
years to
one.
ferment.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
what, thousands of dollars for a little shot or something.
Yeah, it's like $200-$300 for like a 125 milliliter or something like that. And that's one of those that I was in Hungary once, and again, before getting into wine, I was drinking the 5 pitanias and the 6 pitanias there, and like they're still grapes and enjoying it. But if I would have known that was a thing, I would have just gone and tried it, done my best to go find it. And it's one of those things where I don't think I'm going to be finding that in the United States. I think I got to just go back to Hungary.
Yeah.
Darn.
Oh,
Darn.
darn it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of a privileged thing to say, but I mean, for finding some of these grapes, you really just have to be, at those places. So
Yeah.
Yeah, firsthand.
if I could ever try that, I'd be happy.
All right, good. Got your bucket list.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Well, this is.
Can I flip that back on you though and ask,
Yeah.
is there any grapes that you want to try that you haven't had?
Oh,
Oh, that's a
gosh.
good one. So Aglianico is on my list. I think, as I'm definitely going to have to jump into your list now, because I think as I've been studying, I'm so exposed to so many wines that I keep telling myself I need to go back to the basics. Like I need to start from ground zero. But I want to get into a few more Croatian wines. I think that's kind of an area I haven't dived into too much. And just kind of seeing like more of the unknown ones in Germany and Austria. There's a lot out there that I haven't tried that I should know, especially, Spackburger, like the Pinot Noir of like I want to try theirs because like we're such a big Pinot Noir family. I like to do a lot of comparisons. So I think that's kind of where I want to go next. So I am going to go look up your Kruner, was it?
Kerner.
Kerner. I'm going to go buy that one.
Kerner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Cindy?
That's a tough one. I'm right now I'm sort of still exploring Sicily. My friend Russ turned me on to Cananau beginning of this year. I'd never had it. Fabulous wine. And then I got intrigued with the rest of Sicily. So what are the Norello Mascalese was another one I found just recently that I absolutely beautiful wine that I
Yes.
just love. So I would like
Have you
to.
had a Grillo from Sicily?
Yes, love
Oh.
I
Grillo.
have one of those to
Yes.
pour this weekend.
We were just in Sicily a couple weeks ago, and Grillo was like, just anytime I could get one, just give it to me. It's so good.
I
Yeah.
love that. No, I did. We're doing a 6 wine tasting of like Italian wines you should know. So I did grab that one.
Good. That should be one everyone should know. It's so good.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, the Italian whites are all just delicious. I mean, they're just so light, and especially right now when it's so hot, like those are perfect. Some of them are a little bit more sweet, and you can have. I mean, they're just lovely. Verdicchio and
Have that one.
all that, and then the Alvarino is another one that I love. Spain, Portugal, all of those that are just really like that acidity, that crispness that I'm wanting right now in a white with just salad, or like shrimp, like that goes with all that hard to pair, really light stuff. Those are perfect.
Yeah.
And the other
hard to go
thing,
wrong with.
Mexico is another place that I don't know much about at all. I've had maybe 2 Mexican wines, and that's one that I really like to explore.
That's fair. I have a few Mexican wines here. We were down in Oaxaca and Mexico City recently,
Wow.
and so I hit a few wine bars while we were down there. And I don't think I found any new grapes, but it was interesting to see kind of the wines that are grown there because it's so hot.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exceptionally like high alcohol, high tannins, just bold wines.
Yeah, they're very.
We have some Nebbiolo and some Chardonnay that we brought back, and they're I'm letting those sleep for a pretty good time before I open them up. I'll say that.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you. This has been wonderful.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks for having me.
Excited. I'm excited to go on my own Grape Pursuit.
Yes.
Yes, I think
Cheers.
we've inspired our listeners, I hope. So y'all get out there and explore new wines.
Yeah, try a new
Yeah.
grape and then tag me so I can see what you're drinking.
Perfect.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and we'll list all of your contact information and link it in our show notes so that way we can
Cool.
all be following you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Cheers,
absolutely.
Jeremy. Thank you so, so
Cheers.
much.
Yeah.
Cheers. Ding. Till next time, everyone.